Pieslice and you're listening Crisis Wing on Pixelated Audio.
Welcome back to Pixelated Audio, a podcast focusing on game audio, its history, and the people behind it. Really excited to be here. We're your hosts. I'm Brian, and this is Gene.
Hey, everybody. Today we're talking about the game Crisis Wing, which is a 16-bit styled retro shmup, and we're actually joined by the game's creator and composer, Pieslice, to talk about his work on it.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that track that brought us in was the short introduction, followed by the Stage 1 BGM titled ERF. Good little title there.
Interesting name. What a just a great, energizing track that we start with that introduction, and it just gets you right into this fast-paced action. So a lot of fun. Tell us about this track, Pieslice.
Yeah, the introduction is kind of inspired by the Soldier Blade from the TurboGrafx 16, like the same as the fast drums, like and then energetic beat, and it ends with this pretty awesome like arpeggio that echoes over the main menu once the introductory animation is fade off. And then the ERF, which is actually acronym for the Ultra Rapid Fire, which is a nod to the Japanese indie title Jourensha, which is kind of directly translated as Ultra Rapid Fire. It's this basic like Aces High type chord patterns and very energetic melodies that it starts with this chiptune type tiki 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 tiki, and then the glissando like horns and like triumphant melody played by the trumpet type sound.
It's a lot of energy, and the whole soundtrack is super fun to listen to. Why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'm Pieslice in Finnish, like software engineer that does these retro-style action games on spare time. Mm-hmm. And also like to compose a lot of music, and I had to learn to draw some graphics because I do all of my productions myself.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
One-man indie studio.
Yeah. We've seen those projects come through, but we haven't talked to many folks on that. We'll get into how that is, but one thing I want to notice is I think when you came to us, you said very specifically this is kind of like TOA plan 16-bit. You really captured that very specific narrow range of shmups. Like I'm really, it sounds like that kind of Genesis FM synth. Like I love it. I love this style of music, and it's very particular, you know.
Yeah, the software synthesizer I used to create is actually a recreation of the audio chip in the Sharp X68000.
That makes sense.
So it's the OPN.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also I used the old Roland MT32 samples for the percussion.
Oh, okay.
That have been bit crushed, that they come through an old ADPCM.
Now I'm gonna have to listen to that. That's awesome. That's great that you were able to like pull a lot of the synthesis from the OPM and the Roland MT32. What a powerhouse! This is such a fun soundtrack, but it reminds me of a lot of the Toho Plan stuff, and so you really nailed, like Gene said, that tiny window of pretty awesome opportunity in arcade soundtracks. So it sounds really cool. Tell us a little bit about Crisis Wing, Gene. It's like a 1990s vertical shooter, released just last year on Steam, and then 2021 for Switch. Correct?
Yeah, it's also for PS4 and Xbox Series X.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
all the modern systems, basically.
Yep, it was published by eastasiasoft and then developed by Pieslice Productions as the one-man indie studio run by our guest. And this is really cool. So how did you get started with doing game development, and why did you decide on using the handle Pieslice?
It's like old joke that we learned programming in our junior high, and the command that draws a pie chart, it kind of stuck into my head. So I sketched the Pieslice Productions logo on paper, and it's been like 25 years or so.
Nice. I like it. So tell us about Pieslice Productions. Like, why did you put that together?
Yeah, because I kind of love making games, and I'm like professional software engineer, so I can put the stuff together. I can manage this like schedules and workflows and such, so I can effectively work myself. But for everything like music and the art, I have to learn it the hard way, but the software and programming part comes pretty fluidly.
Nice.
Well, you did a good job.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's a pretty good looking package. I've been looking at the game a little bit. It seems like you really, it's a lot to figure out, especially. Is this your first fully developed and released game? I haven't really gotten a good look.
Yeah, so like Pieslice Productions, but of course I've been like programming the other console and mobile titles, so I have a game day background.
Nice.
Gotcha. So you had experience kind of going into it anyway. So this is kind of like, I got to say though, there's not a lot of engineers who not only program, but they also do their own art and music. So that's, nothing to just like, turn your nose at. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
And congratulations on a release. I know the game's been out for about a year now, and that's
thank you.
That's congrats, like for real. It's a lot of work. We commend all the effort,
especially moonlighting. Your day job. You gotta put in your hours there, and then after work you're back on the computer, but doing something that's more of a passion project. That's cool.
Yeah, I have to say that this work from home policy has actually helped me a lot, since I don't need to commute, so it kind of give me 2 extra hours.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm right in the same boat with you. The work from home has been great actually in that regard. Saved me a lot of time.
True.
Let's go ahead and get into our next track here. Gene, what do you say?
I say we do it. This is Low Orbit, or the Level 2 background music.
That was Low Orbit, or Level 2 BGM, composed by Pieslice for Crisis Wing. This is awesome. I love this track so much. Really good.
Yeah. I'm getting those Zero Wing vibes from both this and the last track.
now I can't stop listening to the percussion, the MT32 samples. It's a good track.
Yeah, the bass drum and the toms are actually FM, but the snare and the blades and hi-hats are this MT32.
Oh yeah, you can hear it. They're very clean, very clean. Tell us about this track.
This is pretty much like the Technosoft style guitar banger. There's this riff, and they uses this like similar Aces High type chord structure. And it's kind of a bit heavier build than the previous, so it tells the player that this is now serious business, and so kind of now we have your attention. So
that's the job of the stage 2 music, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had that discussion on a previous episode, actually. It's like stage 1, all right, you're having a good time. Stage 2, it's down to business.
Yep. No more messing around. Cool. One thing that we haven't talked about on the show is eastasiasoft. And they're a Hong Kong-based developer that published this game. Gene, do you know anything about them?
Yeah, I actually had seen their name a little bit. I was a big player on the Vita, so their name would come up quite a lot.
That's the only place I know them from.
Yeah. Their specialty seems to be, from what I can tell, and we'll ask Pieslice to give us more details, but just quick background. Their kind of goal is to get smaller indie games onto major consoles. They started in 2007 with the game Soldner, which was actually another shmup, which was on the PS3 and Vita and all sorts of platforms. Since then, they've published hundreds of games on the major consoles for pretty much the last 15 years. They've also they're also responsible for porting a lot of popular Western games over to portables and Asian storefronts. So they brought the Switch version of Fight and Rage, Aqua Kitty, UDX, and Xenocrisis Super Meat Boy to, I think, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, a few others. But that's about all I know about them.
Yeah, Pieslice, tell us about your experience and how you got to work with eastasiasoft.
I was contacted by them a couple of months after the game has been in Steam, and we agreed to publish it on consoles. That's kind of the whole story. So I forked the source code at some point and handed them. So they did the console versions.
Okay, so they were the ones that actually ported it over to PS4, PS5, Xbox, and Switch.
Yeah, they do the labor for
cool.
the porting.
Nice.
Because it's for like indie, it's very expensive to get to the consoles, and there's a lot of bureaucracy with this. If you compare Steam or this Apple Store or Google Play, that are pretty much doable by a single person studio, but for these consoles it takes a lot of more effort as they have the QA process and such.
I can imagine.
They must have done a great job because it looks pretty faithful. Correct me if I'm wrong here. It looks pretty faithful to what you did on Steam.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Unity, so it's pretty straightforward to port. And yeah,
Gotcha.
From what I see, the graphics are a bit more like muted, so the Steam version looks a bit crispier. But might be the colors and TVs.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of variability there. Was it just? Oh, go on, Brian.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask who did the artwork for some of the advertisement. So I think on the Steam page, the Switch page, there's that boss, the brain skull. Like that's really awesome artwork.
That's it. Done by the eastasiasoft. They have these like key artists that do these publics. Yeah, so they sent me the sketches and I had to pick one that looks the best, and then we kind of cooperated that I gave feedback, and the final version looks pretty awesome, I'd say.
Wow, they did really, really good marketing. Yeah, it looks really good.
It does.
What is it like? Yeah, what is it like having like your idea come to life and see somebody else, illustrate kind of like what you had for the most part in your head. That's got to be pretty humbling too.
Yeah, it really sets the tone.
They pretty much kind of captured the feeling, like high resolution art. Yeah, so I just said that the ships, in the first version, the ships didn't look correct, so I sent this in-game sprites with these like rotations, and then the introductory ship that has the side profile, and they kind of resketched them to look as they look now.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. No, it looks really good. What I love about it is, I mean, the visuals, everything looks really well done. But the soundtrack is just phenomenal. Like, this is such a, I didn't even really know about the game, and yeah, after I heard the soundtrack, I was like, oh my god, this is really good. How did we miss this? And so yeah, I'm really excited to chat more about it today. Let's go ahead and get into our next track. This is Gratify from Level 3.
That was Gratify, or the Level 3 BGM, composed by Pieslice for the game Crisis Wing.
Excellent. This one's, it's a little more happy than the last one. A little more, how do I say this? Like hopeful, I guess. And those swells in the beginning are really cool. And then that kind of twinkly arpeggio going on is also a little menacing. But then, yeah, it gets into this really nice kind of more energetic, upbeat feel.
Yeah, it starts off a little bit more subdued, but I definitely get what you're saying, Brian. I do feel like this one's not quite as, I don't know. The other one was a lot more like emotional, like the second track, felt like it was trying to just really get at you. And this one's a little bit more calm.
Yeah. Tell us about this track.
This is actually one of my older MIDI files that I did original version in 2003 and dug it from my archives and got the notation and rearranged it for the FM synthesis. So the original was more like guitar driven. You can hear that guitar lead type of melody, the main melody, and the string. There's arpeggio was actually a string section in the original, but I changed it more like having this bell-like, because the FM is more suited for having this snappy bell-like sounds. And also the bass line, so I wrote the slap bass type. So it's because it's what the FM is good for, having the funky slap bass lines.
Heck yeah! Well, let's get into our next track here, because we got a lot of music. This is Boss. All right, that was Boss, composed by Pieslice for the game Crisis Wing. This is that FM fuzz. It's so good. Love it.
Oh, yeah. It is like quintessential, the boss is approaching music. I love it. It definitely puts me, like, I'm going to ask, like, clearly you're very inspired by kind of those early 90s shmups. Is that what you always had in mind when you were working on this project, or was it something that sort of evolved over time?
The music's pretty much like trying to capture the top and then something like the Thunder Force or Technosoft music. Yeah,
that's a good style. Definitely, it's not one that you hear too much, actually, even with like retro Genesis style music, which is why I'm curious, like, what is it about that sound that draws you in? Specifically, the Toaplan, kind of the grungier FM sounds, really.
It's kind of the rhythm, since they have to be very creative on the rhythm, as the sounds are quite harrowing if you sustain them. So you need to create the harmony and such by having these arpeggios and different types of oscillators, or and then rely heavily on the percussion as well to get the overall feel.
Makes sense.
I want to talk more kind of about your background and yourself. We talked about, you've been an engineer and you've been working, different various fields in the game world, but what about your compositional background? Like, how did you get into writing music? You just said this last track Gratify, was from like a rehash from something you did in 2003. I mean, clearly you've been writing music for a while.
Yeah, it's playing guitar since I was 15, and then these older tracker and MIDI tunes. So I mostly work with the trackers. So music is composed with Renoise. I'm kind of self-learned, and it's been like years of practice, and I listen to those tunes and then I kind of pick the structures by ear. I'm trying to imitate and then add my own flavor, because I think I still have quite my own style of composing.
Yeah, that's something we really often see is, a lot of the composers that come onto our show are definitely inspired by, of course, a lot of the music they listen to, but, it's never just like, well, I just wanted to do that. They always do add their own spin to it. And that was one thing that really drew me into this soundtrack was like, I've heard a few soundtracks here and there that are just like straight copies. I can definitely hear your voice coming through on this one. Like, I wasn't familiar with your music before, but I definitely am going to look out for other projects that you're working on, because I like what you're doing. Keep doing it.
I'm also curious too. You said like your style, has been pretty much, you developed your style long ago, and you've kept that over the years. What about game audio really drew you? Like, what I know you said Toaplan. We're talking about Toaplan and stuff like that. But like, what games specifically, when you were younger, really stood out to you that you were like, oh my god, this is the soundtrack that I grew up on or love?
Probably StarCraft 1 was pretty much and I listened a lot of, like, I was from PC, so PC background, so the Master of Orion, the ambience, and that's such. And then I got to the retro scene around 2006 and so I started to listen to Toaplan style and this SNES and Genesis or Mega Drive music more.
That's cool. Did you grow up with mostly PC gaming then?
NES and PC, actually, yeah.
Gotcha. What games soundtracks on NES did you like most listen to or you most remember?
Probably Mario, and then of course DuckTales and
fair.
Classic.
Blaster Master. Yeah, that had a pretty rocking soundtrack. And
yeah. We've talked about why am I blanking on the name? It's late at night. Who made Blaster Master, Brian? Sunsoft. There you go. Yeah. Also
Bucky O'Hare. It has pretty rocking soundtrack.
Oh, Bucky O'Hare's got a good soundtrack too.
Yeah, they did a lot of great licensed games with show,
but yeah. Anyways, let's get into our next track here. This is level 4 called M.S.D.
That was M.S.D, or the Stage 4 music from the game Crisis Wing. And I was getting some early, Raptor Call of the Shadows vibes in the beginning of that track. I don't know. I'm sure some people on our podcast remember that game.
You know what, though? I was, like, on those kind of wow sounds. Like, I was getting some of the early Commander Keen games, actually. I forgot, like, what level or which... Maybe it was Commander Keen 4. But anyways, that just was calling to me.
Yeah.
Cool track.
Tell us about this one, and what does M.S.D stand for?
I don't know, really, but it's just...
Sure. It's 2439, acronyms are just around. It's the future. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
This is kind of the level, has a different phasing to the others, so the music kind of slows down and it's more like heavily built, and there's this, if you notice, there's this quick drums that bump from left to right once the like riff just changes, so there's this introductory riff and then there is a variation that is the repeating one, so there's coming from left and right. I think the violin style sound you mentioned, it's like a bell that has a very slow attack, so it has a crescendo building. This is pretty much like a blues track with the FM synthesis.
It is. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, let's get into our next one here. This is stage 5 called Sally. That was from Stage 5. That was called Sally, composed by Pieslice for Crisis Wing. This is sounds like it was written for an ex-lover.
Kind of reminds me of more like European style of shmup a little bit on this one. Hearing little hints of Chris Hulsbeck and stuff like that. Maybe some Tyrion. You know, I played a lot of shmups over my life too, so like I'm hearing kind of like little tidbits here and there. I and you mentioned right up at the top of the show that you're, you know, lots of different shmups that were inspiring you. I imagine that's got to have filtered in a little bit.
Yeah, this is what comes out when I try to write a Gradius track. So this is pretty much Konami influence.
Gotcha.
It has lighter tone than the rest. There's a bit of relaxation after this tedious folk level. Even if the difficulty is high, but the music kind of lets you let some steam.
Lets you cool down a little bit before the next level, which is stage 6. Do you want to just go ahead and get into that track sheet?
Yeah, but before we do that, why don't we just talk just a little bit about the game, like broadly? So we're kind of at the midpoint. You know, we're at stage 5, but you know, I'll just say that the brief what I picked up. This is a vertical scrolling shmup with 7 stages. It's got a 1 and 2 player mode, practice mode, time attack. I'm not selling it though. Like, I'm not here. I don't know the game that well. So tell us a little bit about what could a player expect when they jump into Crisis Wing? You know, is it a really hard shooter? You know, like what? Tell us a little bit about your game, just overall.
It's a early to mid 90s style shooter, so it's not a bullet hell, but it has some manic elements, so it's kind of fast paced compared to like 80s style. So there are some tricky and dense sections. It's mostly flow and wave based that you sort of have to kill all of the enemies. They appear in a sort of formations, and it's designed in a way that you keep the flow going constantly. And that has quite aggressive small enemies. A lot of, if you compare the bullet hells, bit of a different than the modern bullet hell take, but there are some gameplay changes, so it's not as unforgiving as the older arcade games.
That's true, and I gotta say, I kind of prefer the more 90s style shmups as opposed to the bullet hells. I mean, you know, the like just hide in one particular spot of the screen while you avoid a bullet pattern. I don't know, I never quite got into it as much.
It's a different kind of game for sure. I think I float between like 80s, 90s, and the bullet hell stuff. Depends on my mood, I guess. Definitely, if I'm going to pick something up, it's going to be a lot more arcadey, like 90s, right? So, yeah.
It's kind of more the later Tower Plant than the late 80s, so it's a bit like this V5 or Batsukan, and then the Joe Shai indie title, and probably the early Donpachi games. There's a hint of Donpachi patterns here and there in the later game. So it
nice
builds the intensity, and there is some straight out bullet hell type attacks in the later levels.
That makes sense. I mean, honestly, we never did a Donpachi episode, huh?
No, that or Donpachi. Great games, great music. I think I feel like that's sort of where the bullet hell thing was starting, right around there. But I don't know enough about the games to say that definitively, but I feel like they were starting to get a little bit more hectic compared to the earlier games that I was playing.
We did have Uemura-san on, like, it was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago for Outzone. We talked about
1990. That was a little earlier, I think.
Yeah. We did Outzone. He worked on Zero Wing, Twin Cobra, Tiger Heli, a lot of like Hellfire. Oh man, yeah, there was a lot of good stuff. That brings me back to like the Total Plan, the soundtrack style, because I do hear actually a lot of I was trying to pinpoint some of the stuff that I was hearing, and I was like, oh man, there's some like little Uemura like hints of kind of flourishes and stuff in there too. So Oh, that's cool.
I think we should go on to another track, and then we'll jump back with some more questions about the music.
Yeah, let's get into level 6, Unpleasant.
Was the level 6 BGM Unpleasant for the game Crisis Wing, composed by Pieslice.
This is one of my favorite tracks in the game. It's got that amazing bass line and then just really punchy and rounded too at the same time, and then the small bells in there, it just does it for me. Love it.
Yeah. It's short and sweet, and I really love the second half where it's got the arpeggiated thing. It just like gets me right in that shoot 'em up mood, that kind of action game mood.
Yeah, Pieslice, tell us about this track.
Yeah, this is my take on like 80s power metal. So there's this drums in the late section that they gotta hurry up like taka 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 alongside these guitar licks. That and there's the walking bass that builds the track, so there's kind of distressing droning sounds, and then the very rhythmic bass line. The environment is more alien in this level, so the track kind of fits it quite perfectly, I think.
Yeah, I know this was Gene, you have some notes here. These were switched during development.
Yeah, so in that text file, you provided us a text file to kind of accompany this, and one of the things you mentioned was track 6 and 7, or stage 6 and 7 were switched. Tell us what led to that decision.
This was the original, the last stage has the like alien and the giant skull and such, so at the end, but I noticed that the level was so much easier than the 6th level, so I did a switcheroo, and then I added a hyper-aggressive last boss for the then stage 6. So there's this giant cruiser that's been shown in the introductory sequence, that the fighters are strafing on a canyon, and then the giant cruiser appears on the bottom of the canyon. It kind of chases you throughout the game, and you finally catches you in the last stage, flies under you, fight the giant cruiser, take it down, and then there is this command vessel, small vessel that escapes, and you gotta fight it, and it's kind of very heavily armed and darts around the screen.
Awesome. So this was the one that you was used in level 6 instead. Level 7 here. So let's actually take a listen to level 7 and find out. Maybe it'll make more sense why those are flipped. That was Tailwind from Level 7, composed by Pieslice for Crisis Wing. I can see why this made it into the last level. It's a lot more hectic sounding, but it feels like you're coming up to the end.
This is one of my favorite tracks. It just has this really almost like moment of clarity kind of feeling to it, especially right at the beginning. You're kind of like, it's the final stretch. I'm here. I'm ready to take on the boss. I really love how this game kind of progresses the music over the course of the stages. You know, you've got those really high energy opening tracks. And this one is almost like...
This has a danciness to it, though.
It does, yeah. It's almost less exciting and I mean, it's still very energetic, but it's not like, you know, crazy pounding energy like you might expect from a final stage. But I really like it a lot.
Yeah, tell us about Level 7.
This is pretty much me trying to write the track for a Shinobi game.
I like it.
So kind of this bass driven. You kind of get the patterns that the bass is pretty important in my tracks. So they have quite simple melodies, but they have been built on these moving bass lines and then this chord progressions that it kind of switches the key momentarily when it gets to the climatic part and then relaxes again.
You keep saying like, oh, this is my take on X.
Yeah.
This is my take on Y. But you know what I realized? Like, I want to hear your take on a lot of stuff because it turns into something totally new. It takes a totally different direction, even though it feeds on those like kind of like breadcrumbs of like Shinobi or, you know, Toplan or Konami or, you know, Gradius or whatever. There's a lot of other soundtracks now that I'm like, I wonder what your take would be on it, because it would turn out very interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah, it kind of, I start to build on the idea from the source material, but when it kind of starts getting the form, I usually let it loose and then I just write it with my own take. So I don't like copy it to the end. So it's mostly the bass that gets all the overall like feel that I try to capture, but the melodies and structures and such then usually get altered and they have my own take.
That's the best.
It's a great approach, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, copying it too closely, I mean, I think it loses something, to be honest, you know. So I kind of do like the kind of take some kernels of an idea and then sort of see where it goes.
I think there's not just like one, you know, specific soundtrack or, you know, one specific song. I think there's like kind of hints of all sorts of different things thrown in there, which makes it, you know, kind of that collaborative uniqueness.
Yeah,
the track.
Actually, I've done some stage music for theater as well, so I use the same approach. So it's pretty kind of good workflow for me that I need a mood and then I kind of figure out some source material and start writing.
That's good. Let's get into a few boss tracks here. This is Boss Rush, and we'll be right back.
That was the track Boss Rush, or an interlude track from the game Crisis Wing, composed by Pieslice. And I was picking up on some kind of like maybe callbacks or references to some of the earlier tracks, like stage 1, 2, or 3. I don't remember exactly which one right now, but
kind of dun 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 kind of.
Yeah. Like a lot of the tracks definitely sound very different from each other, but this one sounds like it's calling back a little bit. I mean, it is a boss rush track, so I imagine that was intentional. So tell us about this track.
Yeah, this wasn't originally included in the game, but in the patch I added this boss rush mode, so I need the music that plays. There's like mini levels or micro levels, that there's some waves of enemies between the bosses to get the score medals and power-ups. So I needed a music for that, so I quickly kind of composed this one. It's just this intro. It was mostly because of the introduction that it has these horns, and it's like a Top Gun style that you take off. And eventually the boss rush difficulty is higher than in the base game, so you'll mostly die anyway.
Just keeps ramping up forever until you eventually give up.
Yeah, it's actually completable, but
probably not by me.
To the date, no one has actually completed it yet.
So here's a question: like, you made the game, have you completed it?
Yeah, the boss
without
rush
cheating?
I used the invulnerability. I have beaten every boss without cheating, so I've just altered the levels that I spawn from the specific areas. Yeah, I can get pretty far. It's pretty much doable by 1cc because a lot of people have completed it.
So if you buy the game right now on any of the other platforms for, Switch, PS5, Xbox, does it come with this extra boss rush mode?
Yes. But the console version, the boss rush is more difficult than in Steam because I nerfed the difficulty after the code base for the console was forked. It's still challenging, but it's not like gut-wrenchingly difficult or excruciatingly difficult that it used to be.
Nice. Oh, I got the Switch version, so I'm looking forward to going through it. Anyways, let's take a listen to the last boss from Crisis Wing, and it's composed by Pieslice. We'll be right back. That was Last Boss from Crisis Wing, composed by Pieslice.
It's a good track. It's definitely, I was expecting a little bit more like over the top epicness. I like the track a lot, but sometimes I guess I've just gotten so used to like obnoxious drums and horns all over the place for like a final boss theme. I'm kind of glad you didn't go that direction. So tell us about this Last Boss track.
Yeah, this was one of the tracks that was added in a patch. So I wanted the last boss have a different tune than the rest to make it stand out. So I made this. This was actually the second boss track. So I had 2 drafts for the boss, and the first one was chosen for the boss. But I also finished this one and added it as a last boss theme.
Nice. It's always good to have a little bit of variety, especially when you get to that, that reward of getting to the final boss.
Well, you said the last boss, this theme was chosen. Like, I mean, you made the game, didn't you choose it?
Yeah, but I had 2 drafts for the boss teams. And
so you were being very critical on yourself on to which one.
Yeah, so
gotcha.
So I just finished the other one as well to get the last boss music.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we have a few more tracks here that are in the game, but take a different spin on some of your influence. A lot of this demo scene stuff from Pro Tracker stuff back in the day. You got a track here called Caravan. Let's take a listen.
That was Caravan, or the Time Attack music, and that was composed by Pieslice for the game Crisis Wing. I really like this track a lot. I know it's a cover, but it's such a lively tune.
This is a cover of Shoot by it's Maniac, right?
Yeah.
Great track. I mean, it's really cool to hear this version. When I first heard it, my ears kind of perked up because I was like, man, I know this track. I've heard this before, but I hadn't played the game yet. So, and the whole soundtrack was new. So I was like, maybe it's just coincidence. It sounds like something that's kind of like catching my ear. But as soon as I was looking at the notes, I was like, oh, that's what it is. Gotcha. Cool. Very well done cover though.
Yeah, the original is like 18-second loop or something. So I extended it to have the second part. So it's not like a straight cover. Also, the key is different. It's in higher key than the original to make it more lighter. And it's like a bit like this PC Engine or TurboGrafx style sounds that is knocking these wood blocks and such. So it's thematically different from the main game because the time attack mode is easier and it's more relaxed game mode because you can really, if you die, you instantly respawn, you just lose some time from the clock. So the difficulty is more relaxed, so the challenge comes from optimizing your route and getting the maximum score within the provided 2.5 minutes.
Oh, so the reason why you chose this to do this one specifically was because of the timing?
Well, it's probably mostly the tune and kind of its mood is different, so it's mostly for the mood. And then
gotcha. I thought you were trying to fit into a timing window, and that's why you picked this certain tempo and stuff.
No, it takes a minute to loop the song, about a minute.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's like a 2-minute or a 5-minute time attack, right?
It's a 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
So it's kind of
yeah. That's Caravan, classic shmup mode of having just 5-minute play or something like that. I'm trying to.
You know what it reminds me of? Tiger Heli. That like kind of over and over, kind of that repetitive thing, but like you're moving toward an ending. So I think this works well. So let's get into our next track here. This is from the sound test of Crisis Wing, and let's take a listen.
That was the sound test from Crisis Swing, composed by Pieslice.
Love that bass. It's really good.
Me too.
That
Me too.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, it's good stuff. Tell us about sound test.
This is music that it plays in the sound test menu by default.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that obvious explanation.
Yeah, this is used to adjust the music volume.
Cool. So this is also during like a menu.
No, it's not in a menu. It's only the sound test.
Gotcha. Because the track
Title
file name is called Menu, so that was what threw me off a little bit.
Originally a menu tune, but I swapped it to a sound test only because it might be irritating if the game constantly plays music if it's in a paused state.
That's a good point.
Yeah, although I gotta say, you included a sound test. I feel like that's kind of I would say like half of the music from our show comes from games with sound tests because it makes it easier to get. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it is a very like classic game sort of thing to do, and it's always really appreciated to be able to listen to the music instead of having to struggle through very hard levels to get to it. So definitely appreciate that.
That's good. I'm curious about your what you're going to do next. Like, so you released this game last year, and it's got a great soundtrack. It looks really great. Just came out on the consoles. What do you got lined up? Like, what are new projects you're working on?
I'm at something brewing up already. The updates and maintenance of Crisis Wing has took me some time, but I think the game is pretty much like in like final state currently, unless there's some major bugs found with the Windows version. But I've been producing or designing a new shmup currently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Crisis Wing 2?
No, it's with a different style, so might kind of be 5 to 8 years in the future in style from Crisis Wing. So
wow.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
From 93 to 99 or something like that.
Do you have a timeline of when you want to, or when you would like to get it out on Steam or the consoles?
Not yet, but there's a good thing that the Crisis Wing code base is pretty much reusable, so most of the programming is already done, so I need to just optimize it and make it like a bit better. So I don't need to develop the technology, so I can focus more on the content this time.
That's cool. Add some extra story in there, and like the mediocre 3-line story that it was in all the other Toe-Playing games.
One question I had is, and I maybe I wasn't able to find it, but is the music for this game available for purchase anywhere? I didn't see it on Steam or Bandcamp. Do you have any plans for that?
I haven't been thinking. There's this YouTube video that has most of the tracks, but not the ones that have been added with the patch. So
got it. Yeah, I know. I was a little bit surprised to hear this. I've been talking with some composers, and apparently Steam is a pretty big driver of soundtrack sales. So like, if you can put it out there, because I know people love shmup music.
Hurt,
yeah, I mean, people love shmup music. It's always like, we talk about it on the show all the time. It's great. It's high energy.
Or put it on Bandcamp.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Throw some cash at you. That'd be great. You talked about maybe some upcoming projects, whatever the next shooter is that you do. Where can others find more about your game, maybe what you're working on, stuff like that, like your website? Where can we find you?
I have the Twitter account, so once I have something teasing, I will post it there. So it's Pieslice P, Twitter/Pieslice P with the capital P.
We'll make sure we put a link in that in the show notes.
We'll definitely do that. And I was able to find it. I saw you posting pretty regularly about Crisis Wing, so you've got a good feed, kind of giving people updates on what's going on. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye out, not only for this game, but for any future projects you've got.
Awesome. So today we covered Crisis Wing on
everything.
Steam and all the on all the consoles, composed by Pieslice. And a really great soundtrack. If you want to know more about our show, you can find us online at pixelatedaudio.com for the show notes and the track list. And we are also on Discord, so join us there. We have a really fun community, and it's just fun to be a part, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and if you want to check out some of our past episodes, go back to, what was it, episode 76 with Hiyamura? Is that the one?
No, you're thinking of
Uemura.
Uemura, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
that's a different shmup. That was Outzone. But, you know, we've got some really classic shmups on our site too. If you can't get enough of this like early 90s sound, you know, this is awesome. I always love going back to this well, so it was really awesome.
I bet you, Gene, that if we had not done, you remember on like Ed on VG Embassy, how he'd do like the blind listens and like stuff. If we had done this, it would be really hard to know that this game was not made in the 90s.
Yeah, I know. I would have been like, oh yeah, this is probably came out like 96 on PC or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, anything else you want to plug before we wrap up here, Pieslice?
You might want to try the game, at least on Steam. It's pretty awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, no, try it wherever you can get it. If you have a console, play it on, you know, Switch, Xbox, PS4 or 5.
Yeah, you can get it for peanuts. It's like $8 or something, I think.
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it. $8, man.
Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah.
$8 or 6.5 euros.
6.5 euros, even better.
Yeah, it's the conversion rate. So
cool. So let's end the show here with a really cool track. This is another scene track that you had covered and kind of redone that originally went by the name Love is Hard. It's called High Scores, your high score track. Tell us a little bit about this before we end the show.
Yeah, this is pretty cool, like a bit of cafe or jazz style track, and remember listening it in my teens. It's just pretty cool, these licks, so I just took it apart and then wrote the licks with the nice FM organs, since this has the, so I kind of expanded the harmonies to have this electric organ like bass or patch. So it's also been a more arranged, and I did made the drum patterns a bit more complex, that they include those fills. So that was pretty straightforward, the original, but kind of always liked it and picked it as a high score track.
Pieslice, thanks again for coming on, chatting with us about your music. Really cool soundtrack, and it was wonderful talking to you.
Absolutely. We really loved having you on.
Thank you. You're welcome. This was cool to have this music. So much appreciated that I was able to get to the show.
Yeah. Keep us posted about upcoming projects. We love your style, and we definitely want to hear more.
Sure.
All right. So this track taking us out is High Scores, composed by an unknown author, but covered and remixed by Pieslice. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you back in a few weeks for the next episode.